Good morning, everyone. And this is a follow-up video relating to Romans 9, verse 24 to 26 that we dealt with recently. And somebody in a comment told me that Tovia SInger had done a video on this recently, so I decided to look that up. And I found a Christian, this gentleman, his name is Nick Meter, and he did a what you would call an effort to debunk or critique or whatever, respond to Tovia's video on Romans 9, 24, 26. And but unfortunately, it was a very pathetic Pauline Christian defense of Paul to Tovia Singer's critique of Romans 9, verse 24 to 26 regarding Hosea 1 and 2. And I'm not here to do anything but try to educate him and all other Christians, whether you're a pro-Paul or an anti-Paul or whatever you are, or whatever your positions are in life, and you want to have a discussion with someone, how to respond. And I'm going to show you what this, why I say it's a pathetic defense, and I mean this in a constructive way to Nick, and I hope he'll take it to heart in a good way. Okay, so this video is designed to improve all Christian skill in debating Tovia Singer, and that's the other thing is this is embarrassing what he wrote, and I'm going to show you what it did. And we need to be better than that. We have to be flawless. We have to absolutely know what we're talking about when we're responding to him, if you think you want him to look at it. The other thing is, if you intended this for Christians, there was some amazing, Nick used the Talmud to tell Christians how the Talmud looks at this issue. And that's not what we want to hear. And Tovia Singer himself never uses the Talmud to respond on anything about on his channel because he knows Christians wouldn't accept it as an authority. So why is Nick giving us the Talmud as an authority? All right, so here's Nick's article. It's entitled, Did Paul Misquote the Hebrew Bible in Romans 9 and 1 Corinthians 15? Now, we're not addressing the issue he was dealing with on 1 Corinthians 15, just on Romans 9. And he says he's responding to Rabbi Singer on Paul's usage of the Old Testament. He published this on Interfaith Now in November of 2021. And he describes himself this way. I'm mainly writing about theology, philosophy of religion, and mental health. I'm also writing a book that will be published in the next few weeks. And you can just see he has here a lie detector test screenshot, and it's actually a test form for that. And the implication is he's trying to find lies of Tovia Singer, and that's very embarrassing here. You're looking to see. And so let me just say the honest truth. If you're a Christian, you have to just admit Tovia Singer is correct. The only honest response is Paul got it wrong. Lo me, not my people here, was the name God commanded Hosea to name his Jewish newborn. Therefore, lo me, not my people, did not mean Gentiles as Paul construed. He read it out of context. He read it too fast. He also added a lot of words. And the only thing that Christian the only thing that Christians have tried to do to help Paul is the King James Bible's added, I showed you in the last video, 9 words to the passages at issue in italics. So they're not lying. They're not concealing completely their role in trying to manipulate the wording, but they added 9 words to make it more palatable to think that Paul was right. But ultimately, that doesn't work. You need to look at the italics, remove those words, and then read the context, and it doesn't work. You can never change the fact that this is lo me, not my people. Was the God commanded Hosea to name his newborn child, male child, lo me, meaning not my people. But then God is going to use that as a symbol, as a portent. And so let's take a look further here. So then I want to point this out. If it were me and I was someone who had a desire to defend Paul, what you do is after you've admitted the honest truth that Paul got it wrong, now I have to explain why is something that is wrong in the Bible still there. Okay, so what I would say is, 1, Paul does not claim revelation from Jesus or God in this statement. He just says it was written. So literally, he wasn't relying upon saying, I talked to God in heaven, or God talked to me, or Jesus talked to me. I read this, and you know what? My eyesight's bad, so I didn't read it right, and sorry. So that is an honest answer. But nobody will give that, because the fact is Paul never quotes God or Yahweh speaking to him by revelation, because he even tells you in 2 Corinthians 12 that it's unlawful for him to tell you anything he hears in the third heaven from God. So that means we don't have any resource to believe that Paul has anything in the Bible that is authoritative. If you take this, but this is a legitimate excuse. Why is it in the Bible? He doesn't claim it's from God, so we're reading it for edification only. That would be the right answer, if it is edifying, but it isn't here. It's a wrong statement. Paul's wrong. There's just no way around it. The second excuse I would give is to say Paul has had bad eyesight, likely, and cannot reliably read the Bible. So, but no Christian will take that position, because then that undermines everything Paul writes. And you know what? But it's true. He obviously misreads things. For example, Genesis 15:6 in Hebrew. He's a student of Gamaliel. He should have a Hebrew Bible somewhere. It doesn't say what he says. It doesn't say Abraham believed God and it was counted, meaning his faith was counted as righteousness, the way Paul read it. No, that's not the subject of the next verb. The next verb is not it was counted. It was he counted, meaning Abraham believed God and counted it. Abraham counted it to God. The promise in the prior verse of a child in old age, Abraham, believed God and counted it. The promise of a child in old age, he counted it to God as a righteous deed towards himself. And that's what the top Hamilton, in his top Hebrew commentary and he's a Protestant, says that is normal Hebrew syntax. That's what you would have to conclude, and it's right there in the King James. They don't try to change it either. So we've got a lot of problems where his bad eyesight likely explains why he gets things wrong, and then you get the whole doctrine of justification by faith by that misreading of Genesis 15:6, that instead it was his faith was counted as righteousness. False, 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 Paul. So yeah, so nobody wants to make these explanations because they backfire on your belief in his doctrine. But you know what? His doctrine all is based on quotes. Oops, not one quote of God or Jesus. And if he has a quote, it's wrong. Genesis 15:6, or he misreads Habakkuk 2 verse 4. He uses that twice, and it doesn't even say what he thinks it says. Eminah is not faith. It means the just shall live by their faithfulness, which means their obedience and steadfast love for God. That is not how. That's not salvation by faith alone in facts about Jesus at all. Anyway, so that would be the excuses I would have made here for Paul, because that's being honest with the other people on the other side. But now there's other reasons I wanted to show you how really pathetic, meaning weak, pathetic means weak, is the arguments here, because it's just unbelievable what I'm going to show you. And I think you all could learn a lesson if I just show you how I critique things as an attorney, and it applies whether I agree or disagree with the person's conclusions. I simply use these ironclad approaches to how to debunk arguments for real, and what arguments are valid and what arguments are invalid. So I want to teach you that. It's sort of a non-religious topic, how to debate somebody, how to have an argument and win, and you don't make the arguments that Nick did. So I'm going to show you what I mean. All right. So the first thing in a dispute or argument you want to present and show a rebuttal to somebody, what they said, you have to put their video clips inside your video. That's just a rule. And then let the people play that clip into your video. But if you're writing an article, you need to keep it in the text form that the people have met your article. So the article is found on the web in a written form. So now what you have to do is you're obligated to you must state Tovia SInger's argument with all his proofs. You cannot not do that. And that because then that's not presenting his argument fairly. So you always have to present the other guy's argument fairly if there is an argument on the other side. So now the question is, what effort does Nick make to present Tovia SInger's proof? Let's take a look. This is all he does right here. Nick's restatement omits Tovia's evidence or to prove Tovia's point. So I'm going to read you this, and then I'm going to read you Tovia's points, and then I'm going to play a clip which covers all this. It's about a minute and a half, so it's not a big deal. Let me just show you this. Did Paul misquote Hosea, Romans 9:25? Okay. Now, I have to tell you what he never does. He never quotes Romans 9:25. So that's probably why he's not going to present the evidence against the validity of Romans 9:25 to 27. But he says this: Rabbi strongly condemns Paul's citation of Hosea in Romans 9:25, 27. Now, I just want to show you all these italics. He's saying this is the argument. He's quoting verbatim from the video. However, he fails to give you the evidence. He's going to just quote that Tovia SInger tells you what Paul says. Paul maliciously misquotes. I say maliciously because it's grotesque. Hosea chapter 2, where it says, those who are not my people will call my people, which is a complete misquote. That means Gentiles who are not God's people will be called God's people. This is a horrible misquote because Hosea, who lived 27 years ago, is referring to the 10 tribes of northern tribes. Rabbi Tovia SInger, he says, go look at these minutes on the video, but you have to present it here because the person came to you not looking at videos, came to you looking at an article that you wrote, Nick. So you have to tell them all the evidence. If Rabbi Singer's right, there's a serious problem for the New Testament. Yes. So and that problem is that we have to recognize that Paul never quotes God, and that's the proper response. The reason Paul is wrong is because he's not quoting God and he's not inspired. That's the minimum floor. And at worst case scenario, Paul is being deceptive because he misquotes. How could he miss that it says right in context, right nearby? He's quoting 1:10, and it says the son was chosen in 1:8, and his name would be called Lo Ami, not my people. So how could he miss that, right? That's in my last video. But what came after here? So I have had a transcription made by Microsoft Word of the video. It's a minute and a half, and then put it up. Here it is. This is what he says. So tell me if Nick could have just taken a little bit more time and just put these few words into his summary. I think so. Hosea is given children who are all named as portents of the destruction of the 10 northern tribes, the northern kingdom. So one of the children is called Lo Ami. One of Hosea's children is called Lo Ami, meaning not my people. But chapter 2 of Hosea there says, let me tell you something, and I'm paraphrasing at the end of this. Those who are not my people will be called my people, which means you're coming back at the end, meaning God's people, the northern tribes, will be coming back. The 10 tribes will be restored, as we find in Ezekiel 37, as we find in Isaiah 43. I mean, eventually the Jews will return back. They'll return back to God. Paul very deliberately misappropriates his text. There's no doubt about it. Either he did it deliberately or he's a biblically untrained in how to read. Okay, I mean, what else can you say? He can't read the words. Literally, there's just maybe 10 words earlier. It says his son, God commanded Hosea to name his son Lo Ami, not my people. And then Paul takes these out of context as if it was talking about the Gentiles. Oh my gosh. But we'll get back to that in a second. So the last video, I went through this in detail, so I don't want to have to do that again. Paul in Romans 9:24-26 either lacks inspiration or lacks scruples in quoting not my people, Lo Ami, to say the original text meant Gentiles. So I'm not going to get into that myself. I just want to show you none of the actual evidence. Here's all he cited. He just cited that what we call the conclusion. He says Hosea is referring to the 10 northern tribes. But how do we know that, Mr. Tovia SInger? You haven't proven it. Yeah, because Nick is not telling you how you proved it. And how did you prove it? Because in Hosea, it's God says you've got to name your kids different names. And one of the names of one of the kids is called Not My People and Lo Ami. And then he says, those who are not my people will be called my people. So it then goes on to say that God's going to restore these people, okay, the people who are the people of Israel, meaning, and he says the northern tribes. And I'm not going to go into why he says northern tribes or not, but he's saying it's not Gentiles, that's for sure, which means you're coming back at the end. The 10 tribes will be restored. So all of these facts, which Nick doesn't even address anywhere in his article, how can you not discuss the proof he had and not give him his due in court? That's the whole point. So, in other words, it's unfair to have a critique of someone when you don't tell the people what the person said. And that's just trying to win by silence and suppression of the other points of view. And I want to let you know, this is why censorship is become a political force today, because there are many arguments people don't know how to refute, and they decide to use political power. And what Nick did is he used the power of the pen. In other words, he's writing an article. You can't go in later and fix it. You can't add comments to it and so on. And therefore, he can get away with murder. Now, I'm not saying he's trying to. It's just simply this is a rhetorical crime to not mention the other person's proof, because now you're trying to win by silence, by suppressing the other person's point of view and its proof.
And then Paul maliciously misquotes. I say maliciously because it's grotesque. I mean, it quotes Hosea chapter 2, where it says, "Those who are not my people will be called my people," which is a complete misquote. That means the Gentiles who are not God's people will be called God's people. It's a horrible misquote because Hosea lived 2,700 years ago, is referring to the 10 northern tribes, that although they are destined to doom in chapter 1 of Hosea, Hosea is given children who are all named as portents to the destruction of the 10 northern tribes, the northern kingdom. So one of the children is called Lo Ami, not my people. But chapter 2 of Hosea says, let me tell you something, I'm paraphrasing, at the end of this all, those who are not my people will be called my people, which means you're coming back. At the end, the 10 tribes will be restored, as we find in Ezekiel 37, as we find in Isaiah 43, as we find in everywhere.
Just so I'm sure that you understand what he's talking about, is Hosea 1:8-10, New King James Bible. Now when she had weaned, lo Ruhamah, she conceived and bore a son. And then God said, call his name Lo Ami, meaning what? Not my people. That's what the footnote from the New King James Bible says it means. So call his name not my people, for you are not my people, and I will not be your God. So this is a threat, a portent of what's going to happen. And she is the wife of Hosea. She's going to have a son. And then God commands Hosea, a Jewish man, to call his son not my people, as a portent of what's going to happen in the future. But then it says God has also a plan that it will be in the future. The number of the children of Israel, not Gentiles, shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And it shall come to pass in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. Why did it say that? Because one of the sons of Israel was called, the son of Hosea, was called not my people. So where that used to be called not my people, there it shall be said to them, you are the sons of the living God. And what is God trying to say? He's trying to say, my plan is to bring you back and lead you to repentance from all these Asherah poles, Baal worship, and other idolatry. God is very upset with it if you read the beginning of chapter 1 of Hosea, or Hosea technically is the proper pronunciation. And let me just say this. This is what Paul does here. He says, whom he is also called, not from the Jews only, but also from the Gentiles, as he says also in Hosea, I will call my people. So he's trying to say, God has called also the Gentiles, as he says also in Hosea, I will call my people, which were not my people. That clearly, when you read that and you read it out of context, you think it's talking about Gentiles. And that's exactly what Paul's trying to mislead you to think. Either he's a liar and he's deliberately doing this, or he's a very incompetent, uninspired person in how to read the Bible, right? And that's in Hosea 2:23, and he does it again here in 1:10. It will be in that place, and we showed you right 2 verses before 1:10. And how could Paul miss it? It was the command of God to Hosea to name your child Lo Ami, meaning not my people. It will be in that place where it was said to them, you are not my people. There will be called children of the living God. That's subsequent to that point where the word Lo Ami, which is these words, not my people, Lo Ami is here. That Lo Ami meant the child. And that was a portent, if you will, of what could happen to the people of Israel. And God is urging them, though, not to go that way. And he's ready and willing to forgive them and bring them back and make them my people again. So the first problem with Nick's article is he stops short of giving you any of that proof. And that is the end of it's over with once you know the truth. And therefore, Nick had an obligation to just admit the truth. Paul got it wrong. There's no way around it. That's just the way it is. Why didn't he do that? He's obviously wedded to Paul. There's no other explanation that he'd rather defend Paul saying something that is clearly wrong and try to make you and I accept it without ever discussing the contrary evidence. Isn't that a horrible way of interpreting scripture, to not tell you the evidence that goes against your reading? Yes, it's a crime against truth. Truth has got to be the Christian's banner, not a defense of Paul. You have to defend the truth of God's word. And it didn't say what Paul said, and that's just a fact. There's nothing you can do to get around it. Okay, and now the second thing that Nick does wrong is he exploits his admission that lo me, not my people, is the name that God commanded Hosea to name his son. So therefore, it has nothing to do with Gentiles. It all has to do with a Jewish boy being named this as a portent of what's going to happen to the northern tribe. So the unfair debate or discussion tactic of omitting the proof against you is now going to be exploited when he gives this proof here. He's now going to tell you, and even as he's reading it, he reads it incorrectly. So you got to watch this magic trick almost. Now, I just want to give you a heads up here. He's going to quote Hosea 2:1. That's also 1:10 in the Christian version. Okay, so. And I want you to see that it starts with the number of the people of Israel shall be like that of the sands of the sea. So that we're talking about here the people of Israel, not talking about the nations. They're also called nations in other places, and the nations will be blessed by the people of Israel. But here it's clearly the number of people of Israel shall be like that of the sands of the sea. Do you see that? And he's going to tell you that comes out of here. And through your children shall be blessed all the nations of the world. Now that's different, right? This is the number of people of Israel shall be like that of the sand of the sea. This is in Hosea 2:1 or in the Christian Bible, Hosea 1:10. This quote about the children, and through your children shall be blessed all the nations of the world. Do you see? This is doing exactly what Paul does. He brings in the Gentiles, which is not in Hosea 1:10 or the 2:1 version in the Jewish ordering of the book. See, so he is now doing exactly what Paul did. The same crime Paul did, he's now trying to repeat. He has to bring in the word Gentiles because he can't use the text. And he has to bring it from far away. And then he has to ignore that the very verse that Paul is relying upon, 2:1 and 1:10, does not talk about the same thing. This is about through your children shall be blessed the nations. And this is the number of the people of Israel shall be like that at the sands of the sea. These are not the same things. Now let's listen to how he transitions in this paragraph to mislead you to think that these are connected somehow logically, and they're not. One is about blessing Israel, blessing the nations, and here Hosea 2:1 and 1:10 is really the number of the people of Israel shall be like sands of the sea, right? Has nothing to do with the nations. As we have seen in Romans 9:6-13, God promised to bless Israel, Abraham's descendants. Now, in 9:22-29, Paul proceeds to the second aspect of the covenant. God intends to bless people from all nations through Abraham. And then he says this, the number of the people of Israel shall be like that of the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured and counted. Now, it makes you think that what he just said here, God intends to bless people from all nations through Abraham, is proven by this statement. No, not at all. They're totally disconnected, right? What he's done is he got you thinking about Genesis 22:17. He then tells you God intends to bless all nations, and then that proposition, which is in Genesis but is not here in Hosea at all, it's totally different. He's trying to pretend they're the same thing because he used a colon. God intends to bless people from all nations through Abraham, and then he quotes something that doesn't say that, right? He does not. So what he does is he makes statements and conclusions and affirmations which then his proof doesn't prove. And this is a real foul that you cannot do. You want to debate Tovia SInger and your proof of you make statements that then the proof is unsupporting of what you're saying. Now let's read the whole sentence that he refers to. So the number of people of Israel shall be like that of the sands of the sea. It does not say all nations will be blessed from Abraham. I'm not denying that's true, but that's not the context of Hosea that we're talking about, which cannot be measured or counted. Instead of being told, you are not my people, meaning you're not, I'm not going to call you Lo-mi. I said I gave the name of the son of Hosea had been no Lo-mi. You actually will be called in the end children of the living God. Okay? He's talking about the Lo-mi portent on the child, about the Jewish people, not about any Gentiles. And he is deliberately misled you to think what else can I say? It's deliberate. He knows that these words intends to bless from all nations for Abraham is not in this sentence, yet he affirms it's there. So I can honestly tell you, you clearly are deliberately misleading people that this clause here has anything to do with the nations, because you're doing the same thing Paul did to mislead people, but you're doing it consciously. You have no excuse. Okay, Paul might have had bad eyes, but you can see it with your own eyes, and you're willing to deceive us that this sentence, "You are not my people," is about the Gentiles, and you know it isn't, because you're suppressing the actual fact of what lo ami meant in the original text. My friends, this is what Tovia SInger will rip us apart when you have people like this defending you. And if you don't double check when you look at arguments, and you don't look at it and double check it, you can be fooled and then be destroyed by somebody smart like Tovia SInger, or somebody who's just simply read the Bible and can just read English. Because this is a crime against truth, to tell people that God intends to bless all people from all nations through Abraham, and then quote this, which is just about the people of Israel. And this sentence, "You are not my people," was about lo ami, the child of Hosea, and this was a portent. And then God is talking about these portents will change from lo ami to ami. Okay, that's what God's hoping. Hosea was repeating the promise made to Abraham that Israel will be like the sands of the sea. And then he cites Genesis 22:17. But now, look, he gave you what Genesis 22:17 was. It wasn't the promise that Abraham would be like the sands of the sea, citing Genesis 22:17. No, no, no. That's in Hosea 1:10. Okay, and Hosea 2:1 in the Jewish Publication Society, right? The number of people of Israel shall be like the sands of the sea. But he just told you this is the promise of Abraham would be like the sands of the sea, citing Genesis 22:17. But that says, although your children shall be blessed, and through your children shall be blessed all the nations of the world, because you hearken to my voice, Genesis 22:17. So he just told you that Hosea was repeating the promise that made to Abraham would be like the sands of the sea, and he cites Genesis. So he's now trying to make you think Genesis 22:17 and Hosea 1:10 or Hosea 2:1 is are connected. No, they're not. By the way, there's several books. There's lots of books between them. Hosea is in the Minor Prophets, and far, far away from Torah. But more importantly, these are two distinct ideas, right? So if I say the number of the people of Israel should be like the sands of the sea in Hosea, I'm talking about the people of Israel. I'm not talking about nations at all. So what? Why would he cite Genesis 22:17 over here, and then if you look up, you say, well, it says there it's the children of Israel will bless all the nations of the world. So he's conflating, he's mixing two things that don't mix. Okay, they're not to be mixed. Then he says this. So Rabbi SInger is correct. This is for the northern tribes of Israel who have strayed from God. He will bless the children of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob who can't come back to him in repentance. So, we finally got one thing right. Yet God's will is also to bless the people from all nations who have the faith of Abraham. No one's disputing that, right? But that's not in Hosea. That's the whole point. You are mistaking and misleading us about that fact by conflating Genesis 22:17 with Hosea. They're not the same thing. And you've not told anybody yet about the son of the son of Hosea himself is called Lo Ami, not my people, as a portent. Okay, that's what Tovia SInger said. All his children were given names as portents, and so we didn't go through the other portents, but it was all portents. The naming of these children to give people warnings of what could be coming, who were what? Sons of Israel, who were the children of Israel. That's all it's about, and that's what this is why it says the number of the people of Israel shall be like the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured out. And instead of being told, you are not my people, being the sons of Israel. And in fact, that tells you right here what, oh my gosh, I didn't even see this till now. This is clearly telling you, and instead of the people of Israel being told they're like sands of the sea, instead of being told that you are not my people, meaning the lo ami on this child, the Jewish child, you shall be called the children of the living God. Still only talking about the people of Israel. There it is. I didn't even see that until just now. Do you see that the deceit and the deceiving he's going on? Tell us what this really means. If you don't tell us you are not my people is not about Gentiles, we don't get it. We're just assuming that there's been a transition talking to us about Gentiles because you've been mixing us up and trying to confuse us, Nick, with unrelated passages from Genesis 22, which have no connection at all with this passage at all. Once you know you suppressed and didn't tell us what Tovia SInger said. So this verse from Hosea includes, this is Nick going on again. So this verse from Hosea includes Gentiles who return to him. No, it doesn't. Doesn't mention them at all. This is a false assertion. He just makes it up. And he doesn't have any proof that Genesis 22:17 has nothing about it. It's not here in this passage. This is simply talking about that number of people of Israel shall be like the sands of the sea, which cannot be measured. And instead of being told, you're not my people, clearly just the children of Israel being told, you're not my people. And that fits the context, the Lo-Ami name of the son of Hosea. And then you, the people of Israel, shall be called children of the living God. He is trying to tell you, nope. So this verse from Hosea includes Gentiles who return to him. Nope. Doesn't mention them at all. The next verse, quoted in Romans 9, makes a similar point. And I'm glad he admits that, because Paul has all the same mistakes, ignoring of the fact that if Lo-Ami was the name of the son of Hosea, meaning not my people, and that the word not my people in context clearly only meant the people of Israel. We just showed you that. He has done everything he can to mislead you and lead you astray. And then here's what he says. Paul's right. If you go with everything I've just misled you in, falsely suppress the truth of what Tovia SInger was saying, and never reading you the passage which defines what Lo-Ami meant, not my people, as the child of the son of Hosea. No, I've done everything I can to suppress the truth so you don't get it. And now I'm going to read you what Romans 9 says, and it's going to sound like God is talking about Gentiles. And I will so he says this, Romans makes a similar point, that the Gentiles return to him. And I will sow her for me in the land, and I will have compassion upon the unpitied one, and I will say to them that are not my people, I will say to Lo-Ami, the son that was rejected, given the name that portended the people of Israel would be not my people. I will say to them, you are my Ami. Okay, and they shall say, that is the people of Israel. You are my God, or you are my God. Anyway, that's in Hosea 2:25. So this is just a crime against truth at every level, and this person replicated what Paul did, but tried to help Paul out by adding in misleading references to Genesis 22:17, then conflating and mixing up Genesis 22:17 with Hosea, attributing the meaning of Hosea is the same as Genesis 22:17. I mean, just simply off the charts, misleading presentation, never, ever disclosing to you what the proof was of Tovia SInger. Lastly, I want to say that Nick made a big mistake deciding to use the Talmud as proof of anything. And a person in the Talmud wrote something equally erroneous as Paul because he didn't know about Lo-Ami. And so it was obvious, okay, he didn't know there was this name in the book of Isaiah that was about his son called Not My People. That was his actual name, Not My People. That's a person's name. And he mistook it to be the Gentiles. Because if you read it out of context, who are not my people? It's the Gentiles. If you just read it, what it literally means. But that's why it's so important. You know, it was a name of a person, and it was a portent. It was not anything significant in terms of the Gentiles. It was not intended to mean anything for Gentiles. So here's the third point. He made a mistake. You must not use evidence that Christians reject. That is the Talmud. We don't accept that. So why is he citing Talmud to us? And he is citing it to us because Tovia SInger isn't using it either. He's relying upon the express words on the page, and do not know how to verify. So don't cite us, Nick, something that Christians don't normally know how to verify. Now I do, but most won't. But there is a way to figure it out. And it also proves nothing. That another person made the same mistake doesn't prove Paul's right. See, that's why your failure to actually look at the words on the page and the translation, not my people, was the name of Hosea's son. That's the mistake that Paul made. That's the blunder he made. That's the misinterpretation of the entire passage of Hosea that Paul made in Romans 9. And there's no way around it. You should just admit it. I just want to show you what Nick did. He says this: a fair question to ask is whether Paul and I are reading Hosea through a Christian bias. Wow. Is the prophet referring to Gentiles? According to Rashi, the most influential commentator of the Jewish tradition, yes. Now, I just want you to read this. There's nothing in this sentence that says what he says. He just says, this is what it's going to say, but it doesn't say that. And I will sow her for me in the land as one who sows a seah in order to gather many korim, so will many proselytes be added to them from Pasakarim. And that's the Talmud. That doesn't say anything about this passage. It doesn't mention Hosea, it doesn't mention not my people, nothing. So he just simply said, it says this. Is the prophet referring to Gentiles? And it says yes. The answer is no. Now it goes on to say, Rashi's commentary cited a passage from the Talmud which provides further detail on Hosea 2:25. I don't think he cited this passage. Okay, this is not his commentary. Rashi's commentary, I read his entire commentary in Hosea. He never once mentions the Talmudic passage. He never once takes a position on the meaning of the word not my people, because he's just telling you what the passage means, and it doesn't have any big complexity. That's the problem. And then, but this is there. But he tells you Rashi's commentary cited a passage from the Talmud as if it was authority he cited. No, the Talmud in this area is, if you haven't read the Talmud, it's just a bunch of different sages with different rabbinic names, rabbi this, rabbi that, and they're all just making comments and observations. There's no thematic thing. There's no arguments. There's no whatever. They're just this, having a open discussion. Someone's writing it down. It's like some scribe is writing everything everybody says. So their thoughts are just stored. But it's not a study. It's not a book kind of thing that you're meant to, take and read, and then, you're going to use this as your authority. It might help you if you have an argument that somebody in the Talmud said something you agree or think with, but whatever. So, but you wouldn't use it even as a Jewish person to know what the truth is, because they're all conflicting opinions. That's the whole point. It's kind of like a debating forum where you can say anything you want. Anyway, so here's what it says. Even those who were initially not my people, Gentiles, will convert and become part of the Jewish nation. Pesakim. This is the Talmud. Can't believe a Christian would cite that stuff, but okay. So the guy gets it wrong. It doesn't mean the Gentiles in context. So what does that prove? So the only way this works is that he deceived us by not showing us what the meaning of lo ami meant in this passage. And now he's exploiting it just like Paul did. So this is really a what can I say? A continuing bludgeoning of poor Christians to mislead us about what Paul said is as if could possibly be true because somebody else read it wrong. That is just so pathetic. But that's the ultimate place he has to lead. He can't defend that this guy is saying that it's correct. It isn't correct. But that's what we all know. If you read the words "not my people" and you didn't know anything else, you would think it's the Gentiles, of course. And that's what somebody else. So I want to show you the Talmud passage, and you'll get the point better. All right. So I want to show you. Here's the Talmud that Nick is citing to Christians who don't know anything about the Talmud, but there is a way to find these things. And what you have to do is, just so you know, is you have to run a word search in the browser, because this 87b can go for hundreds of pages and you'll never find the text you're looking for. So you have to type in whatever words you were given in the person's reference to you. Anyway, but I just want to show you first that somebody starts off the dialogue. Remember, I told you this is like dialogues. It's not real thematic discussion, like where people are trying to prove a point. So somebody quotes the passage from Hosea, and that includes, call his name, lo ami, for you are not my people, and I will not be yours. Hosea 1:3-9. So this is Rashi in I think it's the 1300s. He has a Bible just like ours. He knows it's not about, if he's reading this, we don't know who posted this part inside the Talmud. Okay. Now let's see here. He says, go to the Talmud and you'll find this passage. Well, so type in the word, were initially, and that's how I got it. And here it is, were initially. And who is this? Rabbi Yohanan said that the idea may be derived from here. So somebody had said something about, grain offerings or whatever. And he says, hey, maybe this idea came from here. And then he quotes Hosea 2:25. And then it says, even those who were initially not my people, i.e. Gentiles, will convert and become part of the Jewish nation. Now, is he saying that's what the passage means because he'd be an idiot? Or is he just simply saying he'd like to now interpret it that way, meaning he's making a midrash interpretation? Paul didn't do that. He literally told you that the verse meant something else. But here, it's not clear. He didn't say this means, or this quote means, like Paul did. Paul said this quote is about Gentiles, as Hosea says, it's about Gentiles. See, but this person can apply it as he wishes. Okay, so, but that's not meaning he's saying authoritatively that this Hosea 2:25 meant this. He's simply saying, even those who were initially not my people, Gentiles, will convert and become part of the Jewish nation. And again, if he's wrong, it still doesn't make a hill of beans. And so anyway, this is not how to debate Tovia SInger. Mr. This guy will be crushed if he had to debate him. This is not how to win arguments. And the most important thing is never, ever, ever. What's the key thing? The starting point of all debate? Number one rule is you must state your opponent's argument in full with all his points, because otherwise, why would I believe anything you have to say? So, and by the way, that means oftentimes in a real live debate, when we're arguing things in court, the other side is there listening, and if you misrepresent their point of view, that you should speak up. And that's kind of one of the aspects of why you do this. And the other reason, that's a good reason why I want to make sure the other side is going along, that I'm fairly representing what he or she is saying. Then I present the contradiction to that, or whatever the rebuttal argument is. And but if you don't do that, it's the number one way to mislead people. And every single thing Nick did here, depended upon him not telling you what the verse said, and that is censoring you and I from knowing the truth of the passage. Anyway, so I hope we got a lesson out of this. Always, always follow this rule. State the other person's argument, and then you can reply to it. All right. God bless. Take care. Ciao. Bye.